All right, let's take you live then to the Bridget Mabandla Justice College at the heart of Pretoria, where that commission is sitting for day 3. Iman Rappetti standing by alongside former SAPS General, that's Jeremy Vearey. Well, Iman, so much has been laid bare on the platter for us, but it still feels like we're just on the hors d'oeuvres. We haven't even reached the entree yet.
And to that point about whether that might see Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi's testimony extend into next week, Jeremy Michaels, who's the Commission spokesperson, said that's something that they will be discussing today. So as you say, just an avalanche of information that has already been presented. It seems as if we haven't even begun to get as deep as we need to be. So we'll see what implications that has for the timing of his testimony that has been set down. Let's bring in Jeremy Vearey, who you introduced to our viewers already, Fardial, this morning. Thank you for being with us, as always. I'm going to pick up on some themes in Ziyanda Ngobo's package around, let's start with Fadiel Adams, for example, yes. Which is what we heard at the start of these proceedings yesterday. We've already heard from Fadiel Adams. He's spoken out about what Mkhwanazi has had to say and basically said, listen, I did what I thought was the right thing to do. I went to the nearest local law enforcement office and I shared this information with them. These are the files that he said were given to him under his door. He read it 4 or 5 times, couldn't believe what on earth he was reading, and then took it as a responsible person, I'm just paraphrasing what he said, to a local law enforcement to have a look at. We saw, and Mkhwanazi then laid bare what kind of flowed out of that moment. Fadiel Adams says this was about a 1 billion rand fraud and corruption issue that was contained essentially in the information he was given. We saw the arrest then of crime intelligence boss Dumisani Khumalo later on charges. What are your thoughts on the defense that Adams is putting up? Not sure, he will obviously have to give testimony and account here at this commission, but the way that Mkhwanazi explained what his responsibility should have been to have presented that information to the correct channels.
Okay. Firstly, General Mkhwanazi is correct in some of the points, but there are other issues that must be covered. Firstly, any citizen, if you inadvertently come into possession of classified information, you will recognize the classification on the top or the bottom of the document.
What would it say?
Secret, top secret. Now, you must immediately, once you see that classification, realize that you are not privy to its contents, that you are not authorized to even read its contents. So the immediate thing would be, if it came to you in an envelope or it came to you, to not even look at it, and take it immediately to the institution like the South African Police Service. But then the important question is, once it is at the South African Police Service, the question that was not answered, was a case docket registered for the unlawful possession of that classified information?
Wait, and that case docket would have to be created or opened against whom? The person who's handing it?
No. Mm-hmm. A person, it's like, let's take another illustration.
Right.
You wake up one morning and there's a gun next to you or a knife with blood on. You have no recollection, somebody probably placed it. You go to a police station, you're immediate, don't tamper with it. You call the police, they come and fetch it, and they take. They link that to some incident that might not have occurred in your particular yard or premises. They must open up an initial inquiry, what we call an inquiry docket, to determine what this weapon was involved in, where it comes from. Now, it's the same when you're dealing with a document of that nature. You're not going to tamper with it. You're not going to look at it. You can, with the knife case, you'll obviously see it, but when you're dealing with classified information, you're not privy, do not read it. Just take it to the police. The police then has a responsibility to register a case docket, and then, if not a full case docket, an inquiry case docket, pass that on to counterintelligence, who are the people who must investigate these matters, if it's classified information or a breach of that. And that is where you leave it. You are not necessarily a suspect if your explanation is that you became inadvertently in possession of it. The second thing is, such an investigation that would then go further and look, okay, if it was in your office in Parliament and there are cameras, how do we can get further information on that? But like I said...
But isn't that what Fadiel Adams did?
the important thing here is, the question is, why read it? Ignorance of the law is no excuse. It might be when you mitigate if your actions are found unlawful in a court. But ignorance of the law is no excuse. Whether you're a parliamentarian or an ordinary civilian, you do the right thing. Do not look at it. Take it to the appropriate institution, but do not afterwards comment on it, because then it reflects you are now going into the realm of using the classified information unlawfully that you have access to.
The other thread that I want to pick up on that, and we'll hear from Fadiel Adams. I mean, we've already heard from him yesterday, pushing back against what Mkhwanazi was saying in the commission about what his duty of care needed to have been. The Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence, for example, should have been given that document. He should have handed it in there. I won't even get to Diane Kaula Barnard in right now. But what I want to pick up on is the idea of what Mkhwanazi is suggesting and inferring, in fact saying it straight out. There's no inference, he's directly saying that it's almost as if those with the vested interest are using parliamentarians, using politicians to disrupt investigations that are at a stage of maturation. Dumisani Khumalo and others in an investigation with regard to infiltrating a crime syndicate that was in quite a mature, at quite a mature place. And what it did was take him out of the game and basically do the bidding of these other dark-handed forces inside policing.
I think what would be important in a response to that is to wait for General Khumalo's testimony, because remember, that information comes from the purview of the counterintelligence investigation into all these things, contacts with politicians, how things get done. And while General Mkhwanazi is right to indicate or intimate that such, because he says he saw that he cannot testify on something that would be the purview of a counterintelligence investigation. So I think the sensitivity here is, let's wait for what the in-camera hearing, and ultimately we won't have access to it, ultimately how that is weighed by the Commission.
All right, I think we've set a good scene, Jeremy, in unpicking one of these central tenets of that testimony yesterday. Of course, today, to our viewers, we will continue with, he mentioned Kat Matlala, who you know is already appearing in court on other charges, and the privilege that he seemed to enjoy inside the city of Ekurhuleni. We'll get back to that theme and others when we continue to unpack what's going on here at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. Arabile, back to you.